Bangkok's evenings had a way of softening the edges of the day. The heat gave way to cooler breezes, and the city lights shimmered against the Chao Phraya River. For Niren, these evenings had become moments of quiet reflection. He was no longer drowning in memories of Arun, though the past still lingered like a faint scar. What surprised him most was how much Korn had become part of his daily rhythm. It began with small invitations. Want to grab coffee? Korn would ask casually, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Or, there's a street market tonight. Come with me. Niren, cautious at first, found himself saying yes more often than no. They explored Bangkok together, sipping iced Thai tea at crowded stalls, wandering through temples where incense hung heavy in the air, laughing at Korn's clumsy attempts to bargain with vendors. Korn was handsome, tall, seemingly good at everything, but beneath the surface, he was far from perfect. He tripped over uneven pavement, spilled soup on his shirt, forgot appointments. Yet his laughter was infectious, his joy unrestrained. Niren found himself drawn to that imperfection. It made Korn human, approachable, someone he could trust. One evening, after a long day, they sat on a bench overlooking the river. Korn leaned back, stretching his arms. "You know," he said, "people think I'm good at everything, but I'm not. I mess up all the time. Relationships, especially. I don't know why I can't make them last." Niren glanced at him, surprised by the vulnerability. "Maybe you're trying too hard to be what people expect," he said quietly. Korn smiled ruefully. "Maybe, or maybe I'm just not enough." Niren shook his head. "You're more than enough. You just need someone who sees you, not the image." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the air between them felt charged. Niren's heart raced, but he looked away, not ready to cross that line. Meanwhile, Phum's own journey was unfolding in quieter, more painful ways. He continued to search for romance, but his boundaries, his lack of interest in sex, remained a stumbling block. He met someone through a mutual friend, a gentleman named Chai. They went on a few dates, shared long conversations, even held hands. Phum felt hope stirring. But when Chai realized that intimacy for Phum meant affection without sex, his smile faded. "I don't think I can do that," he said softly. "I need more." Phum returned to Niren's apartment that night, shoulders heavy. "It happened again," he said, voice flat. "He was kind, but he couldn't accept me." Niren listened, heart aching for his friend. "You deserve someone who understands," he said, echoing words he had spoken before. Phum sighed. "Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe love isn't meant for me." Niren reached out, gripping his shoulder. "Don't say that. You're one of the strongest people I know. You keep trying, even when it hurts. That's courage." Phum smiled faintly, though his eyes were tired. Courage doesn't keep you warm at night. The three of them, Niren, Korn, and Phum, began to form a quiet circle of companionship. They shared meals, explored the city, teased each other. Phum often played the role of observer, watching the subtle shifts between Niren and Korn. He noticed the way Niren's eyes lingered on Korn, the way Korn's laughter seemed brighter when Niren was near. He didn't say anything, but he knew. One night, after a long walk through the market, Korn and Niren found themselves alone in the condo's rooftop garden. The city stretched out below them, lights twinkling like stars. Korn leaned against a railing, his expression thoughtful. "You know," he said, "I like spending time with you. It feels different, easier." Niren's heart thudded. He swallowed, unsure what to say. "I like spending time with you, too," he admitted. Korn turned to him, eyes searching. "Do you think maybe we could be more than friends?" The question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Niren hesitated, memories of Arun flickering through his mind. He wasn't sure if he was ready, but he couldn't deny the warmth that had grown between them. "Maybe," he said softly, "but slowly. I don't want to rush." Korn smiled, relief washing over his features. "Slow is good. I'm not great at rushing anyway." They laughed, the tension easing, but the moment lingered. It was the beginning of something new, fragile but real. Phum, watching from the sidelines, felt a mix of emotions. He was happy for Niren, yet his own loneliness pressed harder. He wanted what they were finding, a connection that lasted. But his path was different, more complicated. Still, he didn't give up. He continued to search, believing that somewhere, someone would understand. The city never stopped moving. Bangkok streets pulsed with life. Vendors frying noodles at midnight. Tuk-tuks weaving through traffic. The hum of conversation spilling from cafes. For Niren, the city had become less a reminder of loss and more of a canvas for new beginnings. He was no longer haunted by Arun's absence in the same way. The memories were still there, but they had softened, becoming part of the story rather than the whole of it. Korn was now woven into his daily life. Their relationship had begun quietly, cautiously, with both of them agreeing to take things slow. They weren't rushing into declarations or grand gestures. Instead, they built something steady, shared routines, small acts of care, a moment of laughter. Mornings often began with coffee runs. Korn, clumsy as ever, would spill sugar packets or drop his wallet, and Niren would shake his head, amused. "You're hopeless," he would tease, handing Korn the wallet. Korn would grin, unbothered. "Hopeless but charming," he'd reply. Evenings were spent exploring the city together. They wandered through night markets, tasting skewers of grilled pork, sipping iced tea, laughing at Korn's failed attempts to bargain. They visited temples, where incense hung heavy in the air, and sat quietly reflecting. They didn't need constant words. Sometimes silence was enough. Their relationship wasn't without challenges. Niren still carried scars from his breakup, moments of doubt when he wondered if he was capable of loving again. Korn, for his part, struggled with his history of failed relationships, afraid that he would repeat the same mistakes. But they talked, slowly, honestly. They learned to trust, to communicate, to embrace imperfections. Phum remained a constant presence, his own journey unfolding alongside theirs. He continued to search for a romance, but his boundaries, his lack of interest in sex, remained a stumbling block. He met people, tried dates, but each time the same barrier arose. Some were kind but confused, others dismissive. One evening, as they sat together in Niren's apartment, Phum spoke quietly. "I think I've been chasing something that doesn't exist," he said. "Someone who wants romance without sex. Maybe it's too much to ask." Niren shook his head. "It's not too much. You deserve love just as much as anyone else." Phum smiled faintly. Maybe I need to stop measuring myself against what others expect. Maybe love, for me, will look different. And that's okay." It was a turning point. Phum began to shift his perspective. He stopped chasing validation from those who couldn't understand him. Instead, he focused on building connections that honored his boundaries. He joined a local community group, met people who value companionship in different forms. He wasn't rushing into romance, but he was no longer defined by rejection. He was learning to accept himself fully, and in that acceptance, he found strength. Meanwhile, Niren and Korn's relationship deepened. They weren't perfect. There were misunderstandings, moments of insecurity, but they kept choosing each other. Korn's clumsiness became endearing, a reminder that love didn't need to be flawless. Niren's cautious nature balanced Korn's impulsive joy. Together, they created a rhythm that felt real, sustainable. One night, on the rooftop garden of the condo, they sat side by side, watching the city lights. Korn turned to Niren, his expression serious. "You know," he said, "I don't want to mess this up. I've messed up so many times before, but with you it feels different." Niren smiled softly. "It is different because we're taking it slow, because we're honest. That's what makes it work." Korn reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "I like slow, as long as it's with you." Niren's heart swelled. For the first time in a long time, he felt hope. Not the fragile hope of clinging to the past, but the steady hope of building something new. Phum, watching their relationship unfold, felt a quiet joy. He was still searching, still learning, but he no longer felt left behind. He had his own path, his own definition of love, and he was beginning to believe that it was enough. The three of them had found a kind of balance. Niren and Korn were building a slow-burning relationship, grounded in trust and laughter. Phum was finding resolution in self-acceptance. his longing for love tempered by the realization that his boundaries were valid. Together, they formed a constellation of resilience, each shining in their own way. The story didn't end with grand declarations or dramatic climaxes. It ended with quiet commitment, steady companionship, and the promise of tomorrow. For Niren, Corn, and Fum, that was more than enough.